What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the Vanguard Project. For those of you new to the show, welcome to the party. For those of you repeat customers, thanks for coming back. Welcome to 2022, Season 2. For those of you, like I said, joining for the first time, I started this podcast back in May of 21 and really just kind of started to interview folks. I am literally just some dude, and I've been really fortunate over the past couple of years and months now to be introduced and have met some awesome folks that I never thought that I would get the chance to talk to and kind of just shoot the shit, learn more about, and kind of just get to know. With that being said, I started this podcast really with just the hope of sharing their stories and lessons learned, and it has turned into so much more than that. The mantra here is growth through story and strength through community. And what I mean by that is I sit down and I interview folks to share their life stories, share kind of how they got to where they're at, what they're working on, their lessons learned, the life goals that they've been aspiring to, how they got there, some of the wins and losses that they've experienced, and hopefully sharing them with you in a way that gets you excited, informed, educated, hopefully directing you down the path that you would like to maximize your life experience. And oftentimes, we talk about whether it's just work, military, law enforcement, mental health. We've got some business guys and marketing guys coming up here too to kind of just tie everything together, hopefully to share with you just information to get you excited about life and pursuing the things that you are most passionate about. So with that being said, that's the goal of the show. I do my best to kind of really just do the active listening. So letting my guests talk. That's kind of how I do my best to let them do their thing, share what they have learned, and asking those active listening questions. So that's kind of my style, and really focusing on kind of just the gamut of people, namely in the outdoor, law enforcement, military, hunting. We've got some folks in the marketing and art community coming in too. So it's kind of just this really fun, robust group of people that I try and talk to. So with that being said, I'm super excited. 2022 is going to be a ton of fun. I've interviewed some folks over Christmas break. I took a couple days off a couple days off over Christmas break for me, and have some pretty fun interviews lined up. Hopefully, gonna be I've sent a couple messages out so far, so hopefully, getting some really fun folks to share some fun stories with you all. And so I'm gonna go ahead and stop rambling because I've been trying to get the verbiage done correctly on this several times now. And today's episode is going to be a lot of fun. I sat down with Mr. Caleb Brewer just before Christmas break, just before Christmas while I was on break, and he is an awesome dude, and I can't wait to share his story. But we just do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Black Rifle Coffee. I'm a big Black Rifle fan. One of my favorite things, it's kind of funny, is of all the things. So I'm on the go. For those of you tuning in and maybe follow me on the Instagram, I spend a lot of time doing things not at home. Like, I am struggling sitting here right now editing these episodes. Like, I would much rather be like doing something different. Like, I'm an active dude. But back to the coffee. Black Rifle has these little coffee steep bags. They're like little square packets. They look like shit, like little tea bags. They are the best tasting things ever, especially if you're out hiking, on the mountain, camping, hunting, whatever the case may be. I mean, I don't know if you want to make it like on the train or something. You probably could. I don't know if that's doable. Either way, they are awesome. They taste great. They've got the right amount of caffeine to get you going. And I have a little code, just Vanguard. Just use code Vanguard for 20% off your first order. And that includes subscriptions to their coffee subscription. So if you're fixing for something real good to get you kicked into the 2022 and off to the right, off the races on the right foot, use code Vanguard for 20% off your first order, including subscriptions and also little coffee tea bags. So I'm going to stop rambling. Be sure to use that code, Vanguard, at Black Rifle Coffee. Helps us both out. Let's roll an awesome episode. And happy freaking New Year. We'll catch you later. What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Vanguard Project. For those of you new to the show, welcome to 2022 now. I know Caleb and I are sitting down. It's like just 4 days before Christmas, but we're getting some recording done in advance. So for those of you new to the show, I hope you had a great year and My name's Austin. I'm just some dude outside of Boise, Idaho. I like to sit down with folks. I've been extremely fortunate to get to know some pretty cool people, kind of get to know their stories a little bit. And that's what I hope to do with the show is share their stories, some lessons learned, help you maybe get some new insights and some good ideas on how to tackle life and move forward. So with that being said, I've got Mr. Caleb Brewer on the phone. He and I talked a couple, I think it was back in August when everything with Afghanistan was happening. It was not a fun conversation, but I'm glad because now we're talking on much better terms, I guess you could say. A lot more fun things are going on, at least in your world, man. So if you don't mind, first of all, thank you for hopping on with me. If you don't mind just introducing yourself and what you're doing, and I'll interrupt you as we go.
Thanks for having me on here, Austin. It's awesome. I love what you guys are doing. I love the whole concept of the Vanguard project. So I love listening to all the stories you have everybody sharing on here. My name is Caleb Brewer. I'm a medically retired Green Beret. I served in the Army for about 11 years. I got injured overseas in 2015 in Afghanistan during combat. IED, lost both legs. Life has been a whirlwind ever since then. A lot of good has come from it. Just did a lot of stuff, adaptive CrossFit, a lot of archery stuff, a lot of hunting, and most recently I've been doing. I got my own business, an archery shop going on here in Tucson, Arizona. So life is awesome, and I'm super blessed, A, to be here, and then B, to be able to just have fun, enjoy doing what I do. So yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, that's sweet. So if we could maybe start at the beginning, what led you down the path of the Army?
I have kind of like a different path than a lot of folks, because a lot of folks at least a lot of my buddies know, hey, right after high school that they're going to go to the military. That's kind of like a predetermined path that they've wanted to do for a long time. When I was a kid, we always did a lot of stuff, playing outdoors, playing Army, shooting guns and being real active. But I tried to go to college right after high school in 2003. And that was because I met my current wife, who was then I was dating, and she was going to go be a mechanical engineer at the University of Arizona. So I said, I'm going to go do that too, so I could go be with her. Well, she's way smarter than I am, and I couldn't hack it, I'll be honest with you. So I was doing that first year of engineering with calculus and chemistry and engineering and all that stuff. And I ended up just dropping out of school because I wasn't ready for it. And I don't think I was mature enough, to be honest with you. I'm kind of a late bloomer. But so I dropped out, and I ended up just working at restaurants and bartending for a while. And in 2005, a couple of years after I graduated, I just was looking for a purpose, and I needed something in my life that was more than just kind of the nightlife.
Yeah.
And so I joined the Army, and I joined in the reserves so I could go back to school at some point, because I felt like I needed to finish college. And I joined Intel. And when I went to basic training, one of my buddies had this book called Get Selected for Special Forces. And it was like kind of a how-to on how to train yourself. They don't tell you what to do, but they tell you how to train yourself to prepare for like all kinds of scenarios, how to harden your body and your feet, especially, in your mind and everything. And I read that book, and I had this moment of clarity that I made a huge mistake on what I should have done. I should have gone into SF right away. Yeah. So I made it my goal that that's what I'm going to do. And but a lot of long-term goals, they get put on the back burner, and this one kind of did, because you get so focused on the rest of life, everything else going on, and this is a goal that would take a long time to prepare for. So I finished basic training, got back home to Tucson, Arizona, started working back in the restaurant industry a little bit, doing my part-time Army stuff. And then in 2008, my unit, we deployed to Iraq for 13 months, and all those goals came back to the surface. And so I started training really hard for it. Every day while I was out there, when I wasn't at the office, I was training, ruck marching and running and pull-ups, push-ups in the gym and everything. And then as soon as we got back in 2009, I transitioned over to the 19th Special Forces Group. And then they accepted me in their training program. I passed all their gates, and then they sent me to the Special Forces pipeline, which was about 2 years long. So yeah, it was hot and heavy. And then in the middle of all that, I got married to my wife in 2007 in August, and we had our first kid in July of 2010. And then right after that, in November of 2010, is when we moved to North Carolina for the qualification course. So it was just back to back to back with everything.
That sounded like it happened really quick. Like I know that spans a couple of years, but that's like, dang.
Yeah.
Okay, so a question, a couple questions I have coming out of that. So you said that you didn't feel like you were mature enough to go to college, and I know that I'm going back to the beginning of the story, but I was kind of taking notes. So what helped you determine that you weren't mature enough? I mean, was it just like you're sitting in class and you're like doodling and not really giving a flying fuck, or is there like something else that really?
It's a little bit of all that, man. And I think that going to the army, I got taught a significant amount of discipline, time management, self accountability, responsibility in the military. That my parents, your parents raise you well. They teach you a lot of things, but it's up to the individual person to use what you've been taught. And so once I graduated high school and I was out living on my own, as a kid, you just said, I got immersed in the nightlife, and so I just had fun. And when I went to college, for engineering for the wrong reasons. So I didn't prepare myself. I wanted to just be with my girlfriend, who's my current wife, but I wasn't ready for the discipline, the massive amounts of homework as a 18, 19-year-old kid. So as far as maturing, like I feel like my priorities weren't there and I wasn't ready to handle that workload. And so it took me a while, and it's kind of funny, but I started college in 2003. I didn't finish my bachelor's until 2020, and a couple of degree plans later and all that stuff, but I finally finished it. But I guess if I just reflect back on life, I think that, I mean, anybody grows and matures, but I'm much more disciplined and be able to do tasks now than I was back when I was 19 years old. So.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So then another thing I was thinking about is you said that you had this moment of clarity. So you had joined the reserves, were going through it, joined Intel, got the book, right? You had this moment of clarity that you had made the wrong decision. What did that look like and feel like for you?
It was this gut feeling. And so going back to when I joined, you don't know what you don't know. And so I'm the first person in my family that had joined the military. So I just said, hey, I'm going to go join the army. I'm going to go be 11 Bravo infantryman. I'm going to go active duty. That was my initial thing. Like, I'm just going to go be a grunt. And I had a good friend of mine who was in the reserves in Intel, and his goal it was to because you can get your college paid for, and you can go to college at the same time that your drill. You can get your clearance, and so there's a lot of great opportunities that can come from that. And so he was the person that I knew with the insider information. And so I talked to him a lot about it, and he's like, yeah, there's a lot of opportunity if you go this route. And so I said, well, shoot, I'm going to go that route because that sounds great. And I would like to finish college someday. And so that's when I went. But then when I was, like I said, so I just, there's something about the draw and of special forces. And I don't know if it's the word special or if it's all the things you think about Rambo, and you think about all these John Wayne types, and you think about all the badass stuff that people did. You're like, that's the kind of stuff that I'm drawn to. I'm drawn to like the hardest challenges, to being as elite of a person as I possibly can. And so when I read this book that was telling me one person in 100 is going to earn that Green Beret and it's going to be super tough, I was like, game on. Like I like those kind of challenges. And so I was just instantly drawn in.
Okay. So was there, what to you then was the difference in the challenge in the maturity difference, right, between going to engineering school versus special forces?
I think so when you're in the SF pipeline, it's a huge variety of like different styles of learning. You do academic learning, you do field learning, you do hands-on stuff. So you go through phases, and I mean the first phases for several months are in the field. You're just getting smoked, tons of PT, and then you're learning. And then after that, after you can kind of make it through that first phase, it's like the leadership course, and then like the initial selection and airborne and all that stuff. And then after that, they put you in a classroom. So I was in a classroom for 4 months straight, learning Indonesian 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and you had to be proficient enough to speak it in a fairly proficient matter after 4 months, or else they kick you out of the course. Sometimes they'll let you try again. So it's classroom stuff. So it's really weird because it's what I looked back on and back in 03 about, having issues in school. And what I think the difference is I could see the relevancy at like a personal level, because for me, I was young and I'm just jumping right into all these really high academic classes. I couldn't see how it translated into real life. But when I'm sitting here in a classroom talking to a lady from Indonesia, she's teaching me to speak the language, and they're telling me, you will go to Indonesia, you're going to speak to these folks. Then I'm like, okay, this makes sense. And then they taught that language, or tied the language training into the rest of the SF pipeline. So you kind of used it throughout. So,
yeah.
And then life experience, man. I mean, I'd spent a lot of time in Iraq, so 13 months for that first trip. So I think just life experience and maturity really helps you with discipline, because it's something that you can't really, in my opinion, it's something that's taught through experiencing it. Like it's difficult to just have discipline out the get-go without any kind of experience in it beforehand, knowing why you need it and all that. So
yeah. So throughout this time, then, what were some of the key things that you learned how to develop your discipline? And I'm asking so that if somebody out there, is like contemplating college or, going into the Army or Special Forces, they're like, I suck at discipline. I know I need to get better. What were some of the things that you learned that helped you develop that?
I think one of the biggest things that I have had in my mind since the moment I read that book, and I'm pretty sure it was either in that book or I had run across another article or something online, was you need to be accountable and responsible and the same person regardless of whether or not somebody's looking or somebody's not looking, because it's easy to put on a persona when somebody's looking at you like, oh yeah, I'm got my stuff together. But if you're at home and you're sleeping in, you're not getting up and doing what you need to do, you're being lazy, then that's when it really matters. And so for some reason, that thought embedded itself in my mind. So every morning I would wake up super early to go like train myself for a ruck march or a run or hitting the gym. And nobody wants to get up. Nobody wakes up super excited in the day. I want to go work out or whatever when it's dark and cold outside. But you have to develop those habits. And so by doing it consistently over and over again, then you can develop that discipline. But one of the key factors is having a goal. And I'm huge on goals, because for me, if I don't have a goal, I don't have something to look forward to, next week, next month, the next year. So having that goal, and I was like, I want to be this elite person in the military. And in order to do that, I need to act like it, and I need to be it and personify it. So I read as much as I could about any kind of material I could get on SF. I surrounded myself with people that could give me good information and just positive habits. It wasn't easy at first, but over time, it's like this giant, kind of going forward about this business thing that I just did, but it's really similar, where you have this massive goal. You look at it from way behind it and you say, this is so big that I'm never going to be able to achieve it. But then you just put your head down, you focus on your 25-meter target, and you just chip away at it a little bit here, a little bit there, and then all of a sudden, boom, here you are, and you've achieved your goal. It's pretty cool to look at it that way and kind of look back on life and everything if you work through.
Yeah, one step at a time. I like that. Did that help you quite a bit then through the selection process and then into, I guess, full-fledged active duty with Special Forces?
Absolutely, because there's, the Special Forces pipeline is pretty long. Generally, it's about 2 years, and you go through all kinds of stuff, and there's chances that every single day to get dropped, and your reputation follows you from day one. And it's hard. It's super difficult, and you need to be very versed in a wide variety of things. But the thing is that's just like graduating high school. Once you get to a team and in group, your tasks are way more advanced. You have more things you need to do. You have tons of responsibility, and failures usually have much more significant effects. Like if you do something that wrong overseas, whether it's a training mission or it's a full-on combat, like people's lives could be at stake, stuff like that. So you have a ton of responsibility, and so you realize it once you get onto a team, and so you really need to be on your A game. And we have our team room in SF. There's 12 dudes on a team. There's a team room, and literally, if you mess up, they will take all your shit from your locker, throw it out in the hallway. You'll show up to duty and be like, okay, I guess I'm off the team, and you got to go find somewhere else to go. So it's not like, you know, they don't tolerate a lot of failures. You got to be on your game. So, which is good. That's what you expect of an elite force, you know.
That's nuts. I had no idea that they just throw your shit out. That's
Literally.
that's a good incentive, right? I mean, like, I guess that's like a goal not to have happen.
Yeah. If you can stay, if you're an enlisted person, if you can stay on the same team for the majority of your career, it's a huge success, because a lot of folks that bounce from team to teams are sometimes have personality issues, sometimes have performance issues, but that's everybody's goal, is to stay on that same team and just do epic shit for their entire career.
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy. So up until this point, then, you know, what would you say has been the most important thing that you learned or developed right into, I guess, your team days that you feel is important to share with folks, or maybe that you wish you would have known prior?
I think the attitude of doing things and not succumbing to laziness and other habits and stuff is huge. Um, there's one element that I really appreciate, that when it comes to not necessarily just something that I need to do in order to be better, but just when something needs to be done. So I like to be proactive on stuff, and I look at it as like, well, if I don't do whatever task, if I don't do whatever, talking to somebody to start the conversation to get something going that we need, who's going to do it? And so I like to just think about it that way, so that I'm constantly doing the things that need to be done and working hard, so that I can enjoy what happens later. And I don't know, I just think that problem solving is a big thing for me. I love problem solving. I love having goals and challenges. And I don't know if it's a good or bad thing, but I'm not really afraid of anything. And I don't mean that in like the sense of like just danger, but like, I'm not afraid to go do a task. And it helps me a lot, because there's fear of like, of not, so for instance, it's like that whole rocking chair on your porch metaphor, where you look back on your life and say, well, what did I wish I did? What do I wish that I had done in the past that I was too afraid to do before? And so that's kind of what led me to go into SF. It was because that's what I want to do. And there's some anxiety, and, you could have like a little bit of nervousness going into something like that. But I just kind of shut that off, and I go, I don't know, I guess I'm kind of I really like being a hard charger and getting stuff done.
Okay. Is that something that you think that has helped you a lot, or maybe deterred you from doing some stuff, do you think?
So that mentality right there is a very, very double-edged sword, especially if you would talk to my family. I think that if anything worth doing is worth taking a risk, I think, and risks can have different shapes and forms, whether or not they're a physical or like a financial risk or whatever. But I've found myself in some pretty hairy situations across the board, not necessarily just in the military, because I do stuff like I sometimes I just put my head down and go, and sometimes I could be a little bit smarter about things. But so there's the military, but then after the military, I've gotten into like heavy weightlifting, where like I could break my back, and overuse my body. And then I had a Ford Raptor for a while. I got into like, just for fun, Baja racing stuff, totaled it and almost killed myself. I've gotten into hunting. I've been around bears and all kinds of stuff, almost falling on things. Most recently, I've been tree stand hunting, climbing 30 feet in a tree with prosthetic legs and hunting out of that in the rain and the wind, and just crazy stuff. And so the reward has been great on a lot of these things, man. I get to go experience some things that I wouldn't if I was just sitting at home in a wheelchair feeling sorry for myself.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. No, I like it. So before maybe we move into, because I know that you were retired, medically retired, you've got 2 prosthetic legs. Before we get down kind of what that has looked like for you, is there any other stories or things that you want to talk about related to your special forces days Because I don't want to glaze over that, but I also know that like I want to get to what you're doing now and also talk about, the good that has come from that.
Mm-hmm. I guess, I mean, it's, it's a big part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I spent 11 years in the Army, going all over the world doing some pretty crazy stuff. Um, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed every minute. I would go back and do it again in a heartbeat if I had a choice, just because I got to make impacts on different levels with the people around me and different folks in different countries. So it's like it kind of helped mold me into who I am today. But it was very difficult to get blown up, and then on top of that, I got blown up on my 31st birthday. So now my birthday has a kind of a dual meaning with um, not dying, and so it's like an alive day is what basically what it's called. So it's cool. I get to reflect on that. But one of the biggest things that I've talked to a lot of folks about, the real similar situations to myself, is the identity. Because, well, I guess not even necessarily just me, but like folks in the military, like 20 years, 10 years, whatever it is, of being a service member and having a mission and having a group of people around you, and then you get out, and then it's all gone. And I was just talking to Jarrett Johnson. He's the co-owner of the Niceville Black Rifle Coffee Shop over there, former NFL player. And we were kind of discussing a lot of related things on that. And basically, when you're in the military, or real similar, when you're on a football team, you're going down a road and you have all these signs: turn left here, stop, slow down, speed up, whatever, and everything tells you what to do. And then you get out and there's nothing. You're like in a giant open grass field, and you can just go around in circles and spin around, and there's nothing to telling you what to do. So it's real difficult to re-identify yourself after all that, whether or not you have it happen in an instant like me or you retire. And so what I've really found is that continuing on and having some sort of service in your life, regardless of what that looks like, but just having some people that you could be accountable to help them out, has paid massive dividends in my life.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't, I literally, before, when I was training CrossFit, I could not sit at home and feel sorry for myself. I had people that were accountable, or I was accountable to them, and their welfare depended on me. So it made me have my A game every single day. And then you just pound that into your head, and then next thing you know, you've grown without even trying to grow. It just happens.
Yeah.
So it's been pretty awesome.
So how, and I love that. And I'm trying to think of like best ways to ask this, but how did you help when you got to that grass field, right? The proverbial grass field. How did you realign with folks to help hold you accountable, right? Or be accountable to them. And then I guess really start that growth process without knowing you're starting it. Does that question make sense? Like how did you go about doing that?
It's just, and so I think the simplest way to look at it is goals. So when I was in rehab, I spent a year in San Antonio, Texas at Brooke Army Medical Center, undergoing rehab and out processing the Army. And they have the ability to take you on all these trips you can do. I mean, the first thing I did is I went surfing in California, and it was amazing, around a great group of people. And then we did shooting, and then I did learn how to run, rock climbing, mountain biking, all this stuff. It was awesome. It gives you exposure and says, and kind of specific to my journey, but I could do essentially whatever I want, with some kind of adaptations. And so I was sitting there, I was like, I remember one day talking to the therapist, I was like, I want to weight lift again. How do I power clean? How do I deadlift? And they're like, oh, we can get somebody to train you. But it was kind of, for them, they're just kind of paying it mouth service, just because they didn't know, it was kind of a newer thing and they didn't have that. So I think they're just trying to make me forget about it. And I don't mean that in a bad way, because they were amazing people there, but I think the specific request was difficult for them.
Sure.
So I remember thinking about that, and I was like, how am I going to pick up something off the ground? How am I going to pick up my daughter, because she was one? It's difficult because, all the muscles, it's hard to not fall on the ground walking, and then you're trying to pick up a weight. But so then I was like, okay, well, this is my new goal. And I remember getting a Green Army notebook, and I started writing down notes, and I started just experimenting. So I had a nonprofit buy me a little bit of gym equipment, had it in my apartment, and I just started figuring out how to do stuff. And I fell a ton and trying to pick up weights and move weights. And then I was like, man, this is really difficult. So then I jumped on Google and YouTube and social media and looking for anybody that had any carbon fiber prosthetic that was lifting weights to figure out how to do it. And then I opened up this massive world of people that were sharing their adaptations. And I thought, this is amazing. So I just studied everybody closely as much as I could and learned how they did things, their foot placement, how they're moving, their muscle groups, or what do they use? Like, are they using a box to squat down on, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then I learned a lot. And then I thought to myself, well, I learned a lot. I took a lot from this. I should start putting it back. So I started posting up videos. And then my friends and neighbors and people in town were like, wow, this is really cool. I know this person. And it just blew up. I was working at a CrossFit gym in town, and I had some training going out of my gym. And then we were all getting better and lifting weights and having like a community, and everybody was just happy. And I mean, I had people that I had this guy, he was 60 some years old, type 2 diabetic. And we worked out for 8 months, and he ended up, like, the doctor said his blood work didn't show he had diabetes anymore. It was
That's awesome.
Nuts. I had a lady, I taught her how to, like, she sepsis, lost 2 legs and all her fingers on her hands. And I taught her how to get up from the ground to a standing position. And just, I mean, a lot of tears were shed that day. And it's been good through growth. And I didn't even try to do it. It just happened. And it's weird how it just happened like that.
That's awesome. So have you thought about like writing some of that stuff down? Like, as far as like techniques or videos and stuff? I mean, you said you started to put it out there and training folks. I mean, world's a big place, right?
I have, man. And I ran across an organization called WheelWOD, and they're just they're the ones that have forged, they're the leading tip of the spear. They've forged into adaptive fitness. Mm-hmm. And they're the ones that got the CrossFit Games to have their first adaptive division this year. And so I started anything that I've learned or adapted, they've already done already. Anything, okay. And it's been awesome. So I basically follow with them. But WheelWOD is run by some amazing people in the Adaptive Training Academy. They do training seminars at gyms across the country, and they're pushing folks into doing some incredible things that they never thought they could have done before. So yeah, it's pretty good. So I always refer folks to them.
Okay, WheelWOD. I'll have to look it up and make sure it's linked. So you've obviously turned this, and before we get into your business now and everything in archery and hunting, you turned this into a pretty positive thing for you, right? Were there days that were dark, or have you come across folks that are in similar situations with their adaptations that are just like giving up?
Mm-hmm. 100%. There, it's easy to just say, oh, it's all rainbows and unicorns or whatever, but it's still, there's darkness, and you're always kind of fighting it away. Good days, bad days, without a doubt. I mean, I go through a lot of pain on a fairly regular basis, so sores and back stuff and all that. But early on, it was rough, very, very, very rough, because it's a change. Like, you're just drastically, your life changes in a split second. And they had me medicated quite a bit, for the pain, our narcotics and nerve pain and stuff for your appetite, and, antidepressants and stuff. And I remember talking to a buddy really early on in like April. I got injured in December, and then in April, and he was talking about how it was difficult, to go through all this stuff. And I was like, thinking to myself, this isn't that bad. Everything's okay. And then I was like, wait, that's not normal. And then, I was like, you know what, it's probably a lot of the effects from these medications. So I need to come to terms. And I decided to quit all my meds cold turkey, and it was awful. And so in May, I was done. I got off a huge handful of pills, all the pain stuff. And I would take stuff as needed, like an Advil or an Oxycontin or whatever as needed, but not like the normal, hey, here's my daily pill count. And it was awful. The withdrawals were awful. But afterwards, I was like, wow, this is real life. And now I have to accept what happened and figure out how to like identify a new normal. And I remember one of the psychologists telling me that, it's normal to be angry, depressed, all these feelings, because you have abnormal circumstances happening to you. And if you didn't have these feelings of anger and all that stuff, he said, then he would actually be worried about me. And I was like, well, that makes a lot of sense. I hadn't thought about it that way. And he said, but what happens is you can't stay in that cycle forever. You have to figure out a way to get over it, essentially, and become a better person, or just get your new normal and move on with your life, because you can't get stuck in that rut. So, and there's days where it still happens. Like if I'm in pain will trigger a lot of negative feelings, and there's no way to really avoid it. You know, if you're in a ton of pain, it's easy to be pissed off at the world, and, you know, but it's just a matter of like figuring out how to deal with it. Like if I'm in pain, I'll get out of my legs, I'll sit in a wheelchair, I'll try to do something that helps me out, whether it's go for a workout or go shoot some arrows, spend time with my family, stuff like that. So I try to look for ways to help me reset my mental loop when you're getting in those cycles of feelings.
Okay. So in kind of a similar vein, what would you like guys to know or to be aware of that are going through a similar situation to not get stuck in the rut or find out their new normal?
I think knowing that you're going to have to accept it at some point is really key. Because like, so for me, I mean, I invested my entire body and life into being SF. I identified myself as a Green Beret. That's who I was. And it was taken away in a split second, gone, never to return. And so I had to, it took me a while, I mean, a couple of years really to start really feeling like I'm getting to understand my new normal. But a lot of folks live in the past, and living in the past, I don't think is productive to what you should do. So for me, I could sit down here and say, hey, I was a Green Beret, I was an SF dude, and then just go on and live my life with that persona still. And it's counterproductive because it's not allowing me to move forward. So what I'm doing is I'm using my past to help guide me and like define what's next, and not living in it. Because I could easily live in it, but it's not good for my family. It's not good for me. So it's, you have to move through it. And I think the other big factor to anybody working through any kind of physical impairment or anything they got going on is finding things that you can do that'll make you have a sense of accomplishment, regardless of how little it is, regardless of how big it is, or it may seem mundane. But if you can do things that make you feel a sense of accomplishment, even if it's with the help of others, you feel better about yourself. You feel good. You know, you move from point A to point B, and those little goals add up over time to significant results, I'd say.
Okay. So coming to terms and small accomplishments.
Yep.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. So you did your Baja racing, you got into hunting, archery, and you just started Stick Sniper Archery.
Yeah.
Do you mind talking about how all of that came to be?
Yeah, it's kind of funny how things happen. But in 2018, in February, I went on my very first hunt that I'd ever been on in my life. I went on a Barbary sheep hunt in New Mexico with a good buddy of mine, Jesse Gregson, through his nonprofit. And they busted their asses, and I ended up getting a sheep with their help. And it was something I just thought to myself, why have I never been on a hunt before? This is silly. This is amazing. I love it. I get to experience everything outdoors. I get to be around a good group of people. I get to go harvest an animal and bring it back home and bring meat to my family. Like it's amazing. So I started getting really into hunting after that. And I went on several hunts, and, you know, elk and deer and javelina and stuff, and got some with a rifle. And then one day I was talking to my father-in-law, and I said, you know, I want to go shoot a bow and just see what it feels like. And he's like, well, funny you mentioned that. I have this old PSE Nova at my house. And he brought it over, and he's like, here, you just have it. So I said, all right, cool. And I didn't know what I was doing, and I dry fired it, and I broke the string the very first time I got it. So I have this bow, it's an old bow, so I had to take it into one of the local archery shops that's owned by a Vietnam combat vet. And they got it all fixed up for me, put new cables and strings on it. And then when I had to go, when I came back to pick it up, the weirdest thing happened. There was a lady in there that had a bow and a tackle box full of equipment, and said, hey, my father-in-law is in hospice and wants to donate his bow to a wounded veteran. And the owner looks at me and is like, well, no kidding. And so They handed me all that stuff. It was an old bow again,
Yeah.
but it was like, it had tools and broadheads and tips and grunts and all kinds of stuff in this tackle box. And I was just like, holy crap, this is crazy. So then I started shooting it and shooting and shooting and shooting. I loved it. I loved every second of it. And I went hunting, and I had an opportunity at about 50 yards on a really big Coos whitetail buck, but there was lots of wind, and I didn't feel comfortable enough to take that shot because I hadn't been practicing enough. So I didn't shoot. It was eating me up, and I was like, what is going on? Why is this eating me up? So then I ended up buying a newer Matthews bow because I figure if I'm going to go hunt, I'm going to put every bit of money that I possibly can into it so that I can be as successful as possible for the animal and for myself. And then after that, it was just, I loved it. And then I was like, I want to go make my own strings and I want to work on my own bow. So I ended up buying some archery shop equipment for my garage, worked on it, buddies' bows and my bow in my garage just for fun for a while. And then I was like, I'm going to open up my own archery shop. This is really, really cool. And I love it. So then I started writing a business plan early last year, a little bit before that for the business plan. And then COVID hit. And I got a buddy, Jonathan Lopez. He's in with Operation Enduring Warrior, and he was running their skydive program. And Operation Enduring Warrior is a nonprofit that serves vets and first responders. And the majority of their events are for Spartans and Tough Mudders and obstacle course races. And they take significantly wounded folks through it as a sense of empowerment. And because of COVID, all those events were shut down. So we started chatting, and we were like, OEW needs an archery program. And so we wrote up a plan, we pitched it to the board, and they said, yep, let's do it. And so August of last year, we started doing it. But at the same time, I told OEW, I was like, hey, I got about a year with you guys because I got to finish on my goal of opening up a shop.
Yeah.
I said, no problem. So from August last year all the way until now, it has been a wild ride with OEW. We have gone to 3D shoots, hunts, training camps. We give away grants for like $1,000 grants for folks to buy their own equipment. Got to do the job at a bow shop with Paralympic training, all kinds of stuff. And folks that are, in a wheelchair, folks that are prosthetics, folks that have mental, emotional trauma, we get them shooting a bow, and the results have been freaking incredible. And, just shooting a bow, you have zero capacity in your mind to think about pain or a bad day or anything like that. You can only think about releasing that arrow, which ends up being like a release, like a mental release, and they don't even know it. So I don't even tell anybody anymore when I get them into archery. I'm like, I'm not even going to tell them that they're like going to a therapy session if they're dealing with a hard time, because they'll figure it out. But so the year went by, and I recently just stepped down. I'm still going to be with them and mentor and as an advisor and everything, but I've been working on my business for about 6 months now. Mm-hmm. And it's all come together. And in this past November 15th, we opened up Stick Sniper Archery in Tucson, Arizona. And it is going great. I am so grateful and lucky to be able to do this. I love it.
That's awesome. So is it like a storefront people can come see you, or is it still out of your garage?
So I got a 6,000 square foot building.
Holy crap.
With like a huge range. I got a tuning cave with like chronograph. I got like 5 employees working on bows. We got tons of bows. We got a couple hundred bows in inventory, camos, all kinds of stuff. And we're just going to keep expanding. It's big.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's the biggest shop in Southern Arizona.
Yeah. For 6 months. That's nuts.
I know, man. It's been a godsend for me, and just kind of the way the rest of my life has been, it's just like providence or like dominoes that are just ready to be stacked over. And like, I've lived my life, I want to put good into the world. I just want good in the world. I want no expectation of any return. I just want good things to go out into the world. And it's weird how there has been a lot of things coming back my way without even trying. Like I don't hustle. Like I'm not on the streets, like trying to make connections and all this stuff. And I don't mean this in like an arrogant way, but like I'm just so content in life that I'm just living in like all these good things. I put out good, and then good comes back with no expectation. And it's been amazing.
That's awesome. So what has been the biggest thing that you've learned throughout starting the business and kind of getting it up and going?
It is a lot of work. It is so much work. So I did a lot of, so one of the things about SF is that we train by, with, and through our partner forces. So we very rarely do things unilaterally where like you go kick in a door and go kill a terrorist, just you. Right. You usually do it with your partner force. And as a result, we have to learn how to manage large groups of people, missions, long-term, short-term stuff. And it's essentially like project management. So we have, SF is very, very good at planning all elements of something, planning for contingencies and backup plans, and looking at in-depth what to do. And so I was super intimidated with this business at first, but then I got the business plan shell, and I started inputting different elements, and it was like, this is the same thing as writing up a mission. Like, I'm just going to look at all the elements. It's like a 5-paragraph op order. And you take all the elements and you just switch military jargon to non-military stuff, and you do it. And so it's kind of like I was talking about, how just one step at a time. Like, this is a huge deal to do all this stuff, all the finance, the taxes, the accounting, the inventory, the employees, the location, all the permitting, all the advertising, market. Like, it's nuts. But you just chip away at it a little bit at a time. And with this one specifically, I got a really good group of folks around me. Like, I like to surround myself with people that are better than me, and like that know what they're doing, so that we can all specialize on certain things and get it done. So I've had a phenomenal group of people around me helping out with this. So
that's cool. That's awesome. I love hearing about stuff like that, you know, where it's like, oh man, I had this previous skill that I applied to this new thing that I'm working on, and lo and behold, it's the same thing, you know, and it's working. I'm still blown away. Just like 6,000 foot warehouse, 5 employees, hundreds of like, so this is the podcast is the closest thing I've ever done to like starting a business. And like, I don't really have anything that like I inventory or really own other than like audio. But to me, that seems like insane to have done that so fast.
So the one element with this is that I purchased a business that was the owner. So the owner had owned this business before, and he was wanting to retire. And so, and with my mindset, I was going to start at the bottom with a tiny little archery shop and scratch my way from the bottom, because the archery industry is really good at taking care of shops, and because of online commerce. So like, if I want to go buy a Hoyt or a Matthews PSC bow, whatever, you can't buy it online. You have to go to an authorized dealer, and you have to purchase it there. And so the shops or the manufacturers won't let you sell them online. And so as a dealer for me, so if I said I wanted to take a Hoyt and I wanted to sell it to somebody outside of my region, that could potentially get my license revoked, because they protect the locals in the local shops in the areas. That's and cool. They literally do like area studies. Like, they'll say, hey, there's too many people selling this product in this area. It's saturated. Sorry, we're not going to let anybody else sell our product. So it's been great. And so I was going to say, well, I'm going to sell any bow line I can get, and then get bigger and then grow. But I got some insider information that this guy was just wanting to retire. He had a very, well-oiled business. And so I just called him up one day. I was like, hey, you want to sell your business? And he said, well, let's talk about it a little bit, because it's not as simple as that. And then I learned about all the work that went into it. It was crazy. But I was very, very fortunate to get a head start, because they had been in business for 11 years. And then I got to add my flavor of everything, with the military side. And so, yeah, that's why it started out so well, because just being able to be that fortunate to work that angle.
Yeah, that's cool. I bought my first bow, I think it was maybe this time last year, if I remember right. And I just bought it was a Diamond Archery Edge 320. I just bought one of the off-the-shelf ready-to-shoot packages, because I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like it. I don't want to go spend, $700-800 on a bow and, be like, damn it, I didn't like this. But it is like the most therapeutic thing to go shoot, because like I've shot, my fair share of rifles and stuff, and it's pretty easy to have things going on between the ears and still be able to, hit a target. But when you go shoot a bow, like to your point earlier, you have to be like silent. Like everything has to, like, you can't be thinking about anything. You can't be like exhausted. You have to be like totally in the zone. Otherwise, like I may or may not have sent a couple arrows through the wall, because I wasn't fully present,
That's awesome.
But
It's so true, man. That's just, I don't know what it is about archery. It's incredibly therapeutic and addictive. And I think that, we live in a world today where most things you get quickly, like instant gratification. If you get a like on your Instagram page, or, you can go buy something on Amazon on the spot. And archery is like very, very counter to that, where you are going to try to get that instant gratification and pursue like being being a master, like being a master at this activity. But you never will. You literally will never be there. You will have off days. The slightest thing could affect your shot. And so it's something that it's like a continuous skill set that you can always practice, and you're never going to get bored of, because you're never going to become good enough to become bored at it, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, well, I feel like I'm fresh out of questions. Is there anything that you feel like we might have glazed over or didn't get too in depth on that you'd like to talk about?
No. The only thing that's pretty forefront of my mind today or lately just is I think it's easy with a lot of the world and political issues and stuff and social media and the news to start thinking in the negative side of things. It's very, very easy to get spun up and sucked into a lot of this stuff. And I'll be honest, like last year, and then when we talked about Afghanistan, I was getting into that mindset. But the one thing that keeps bringing me back to reality and back to the real stuff is just realizing that there is a significant amount of good in the world. There's a significant amount of good people. And what I have to do to realize it is kind of unplug from the phone and just stop and be present in the moment and look at my family or look at the people that I'm talking to and the conversations and be like, this is real and this is good. And it kind of grounds me a lot. And so I've had to use that as like a self reset button, because it's easy to get caught up in everything nowadays and just ruins your life. But I just focus on the good in my life, and I focus on making a positive influence in my sphere of influence where I can. And it's been a huge mental health boost.
Be a good person. Goes a long ways.
It does.
Okay. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate you and taking the time.
Thanks for your time, man.
Caleb, man, once again, thank you for taking the time and sitting down and sharing your story with me. I feel like you have taken some pretty intense circumstances and made the absolute best out of that. And for that, I look up to you. I appreciate everything that you've done, time served, what you've been doing, what you've been working on, the pillar that you've been standing up in the community. And I hope everybody listening took some good information away, whether that's overcoming adversity, right? Owning your own circumstances, making the most of life, chasing your passion, honestly, wholeheartedly, even if it's dangerous, or standing on tree stands 30 feet high in prosthetic legs and high winds, right? If that's your thing, you do you, or almost destroy, or why you would destroy a Ford Raptor, I don't know. But you know what, man? I appreciate you. I hope everybody listening, I hope that you took some good stuff away. Please feel free to follow either Caleb or I, or the both of us on Instagram. Caleb's will be linked in the episode description, CK Brewer, and then mine is at the Vanguard Project with periods in between. And let's stay in touch and keep in contact. But I hope you all have a great day, and we'll catch you next week.